Thanks everybody for coming to my talk. How many of you guys use breach credentials in your daily pen testing tasks for external, internal? Okay, a few of you. So today we're going to be talking about GoPhlare, a custom open source tool that I wrote. So another reminder, definitely contribute to open source, even if it's just opening up an issue on a repository. If you see a bug, everything helps, and that's how we make our tools better. So who am I? I'm a red teamer at Black Hills Information Security, and prior to joining Black Hills, I did a little bit of everything: DevOps, development, and security. And I also like drawing, painting, drums, music, and bowling, and all that good stuff. So what is Flare? Flare is a really awesome platform to monitor breach data and check out if your organization has been breached or one of your employees. You can check emails, you get alerts, and a lot of really good monitoring and stuff, but you can also search not just yourself, but other organizations as well. So there's a lot of really good, juicy information out there on the dark web, but aggregating and maintaining all that information can be a little bit painful because it's just a lot, and you need a lot of storage and a way to query it and search it. So Flare is a fantastic platform to assist you with breach credential monitoring and using against your customers. So today's agenda, we're going to go over the problem, why you should care, some features and usage of the tool, and a quick demo at the end. So basically, the problem, right? So there's a funny sound effect in here, but the sound is off, but oh well. But basically, finding a needle in a haystack, right? So how many times have you been on an external pen test, you got all these breach creds tied to an email, then you get to the internal network pen test, and they're using user IDs. So now what are you going to do? You got 10,000 breach creds, and no way to quickly correlate all those emails to their actual user IDs on the internal network. You can do it manually, but it's going to be a little painful. So that was the problem I sought to solve, in addition to another problem, which was the Flare platform is fantastic, but if you're on a 3-day pen test, you don't really have time to spend a couple hours in there trying to download what you need and aggregating all the data and getting it in the format that is useful for you directly to password spraying or credential stuffing. So we're also going to go over a little bit of Active Directory correlation, which is another subcommand in the tool. So why GoPhlare? Well, as I previously stated, it can be quite tedious to manually search and download all the data from the UI. Or maybe I'm just impatient. I don't know. But I like to have it right away, make an API call, download it, convert it to the format I like, an Excel spreadsheet, a CSV file, JSON, all that good stuff. And text files as well for credential stuffing. So what if you get 10 hits for a password for the same user? Well, if you just spray those 10 passwords, you're going to lock out that account. You're going to have a bad time. But wouldn't it be nice if you could just search those credentials by the domain on the command line? I'm a little bit of a console cowboy myself. If I can avoid the UI, best believe I'm going to avoid it. But basically, here's an example command right here. You'll do GoPhlare search, give it a config file, which will have your credentials for the Flare platform, and then you can just search credentials by domain. So if you're testing example.com, you just give it example.com, and it's going to give you all the passwords and usernames that it found based on a timeline date that you can specify in the config. But all of the config or key value pairs in the config file are also supported as command line arguments. So really love Go and Cobra. Library makes it super easy to make a nice full-featured command line tool. With all the batteries included. But yeah, Flare's UI is fantastic. I'm not hating on their UI. I just love doing things on the command line. And it's a little bit faster when time is of the essence. But let's say you got a list of emails that you found and validated. Well, you can search those too. Just give it a file with line-separated email addresses, and you will get all those credentials back into an Excel sheet, CSV file, JSON, all that good stuff. And other than that, there is also Stealer logs. So Jordan in the previous talk had mentioned a little bit about Stealer logs, really juicy information in there, and Flare does a great job of allowing you to download these Stealer logs, but there might be hundreds, right? So if you want to manually download each Stealer log one at a time, ain't nobody got time for that, or at least I don't. So that's part of the reason I wrote this tool, and initially I wrote this tool probably about the beginning of this year, so about 10 months ago or so. Don't quote me on that, probably got the date wrong. But what you can do is, in the UI, sometimes it was hard to get the URLs related to those passwords and usernames. And it's pretty important, because you might have a username and password, but where the heck does it go to, right? So other times you could get the URL and the password, but the password would be redacted. So trying to get all this good stuff in one place so you can get up and running really quick. But what's really cool about the Stealer logs that Flare provides to you is cookies as well. So you can find live cookies in there and sometimes get a quick win on day one. But this command right here will be a way to search the Stealer logs from 2023, January 1st to 25, October 7th. And by default, when you're downloading these Stealer logs, they are going to be deleted afterwards because there's some nasty stuff in there sometimes. Sometimes those Stealer log files also includes the malware. So you got to be careful, but if you give it the keep zip files flag, you can actually retain all those Stealer logs and look through them manually, because if you're doing social engineering campaigns, you might find some really juicy stuff, or you can use this against people when you're social engineering and say, hey, I found your credential, also your passport, give them a little personal information, get some credibility, and you're off to the races. So that's another command for Stealer logs. There can be quite a lot, so usually I like to just search the past couple of years, because depending on how many API requests you get, if you're sharing an API key with the rest of the testers in your organization, you might exhaust that quota pretty quick. Or if you're feeding it a bunch of junk domains, sometimes that can use up a lot of requests too. But there's also custom queries that you can do. I believe the Flare platform uses KQL or some kind of SQL Elasticsearch-like searching query syntax. So you can give it custom queries, but I have a few baked in. So the first one, if you're searching by domain, it'll be like star any email, so like star everybody@example.com. But maybe you're interested in their third-party platform. So think example.okta.com. You can give it the search Stealer logs by host domain, and that'll give you basically whatever host you give it, tell you if there's credentials related to that. So if you're testing example.okta.com, you might get some wins there as well. But not only that, search Stealer logs by wildcard host. So think all the subdomains for your company, like vpn.example.com or www, whatever, right? You can search all those as well, all at once, and pretty nice. Just use this flag and make sure your config file has the right credentials. But not only that, GoPhlare can also be used as a library. So if you're writing your own custom tools, you can import this tool directly and do whatever you want with the credentials. Parse them out, feed them to another tool, and really get granular with the search parameters, right? Flare also has a SDK, but some of the data structures weren't there, so they left it up to you to define the data structures, and I'm a little bit opinionated about that, so I said, you know what, let me write my own tool that has the data structures for the JSON that's getting returned, so you don't have to go through that painful process of defining it yourself, because why else would you use that SDK, right? And I'm not talking crap, or maybe I am, I don't know. But anywho, next slide. So here's the whole meat and potatoes of the talk, BloodHound, right? You guys are like, when is he gonna get to Bloodhounds? But basically, we were on a test and we had thousands of breached credentials, but the company had just done a couple of mergers and acquisitions. So all these emails, once we got to the internal Active Directory side of things, were not one-to-one match. So we had a hell of a time trying to correlate all of these different credentials from their old email addresses from the previous acquisition company to the new SAM account name on the internal network. And when you got 10,000 of these, it's kind of like Charlie with all the strings in the background on the graph, like, what's going on? But essentially what you can do now is after you've collected all that flared data with the search credentials by domain or whatever, then you can use the BloodHound subcommand and give it that flare leaks JSON file. And also in your config file, there's two ways you can do this. You also give it the Neo4j password for your BloodHound Community Edition instance. We do not support the old legacy BloodHound anymore. Sorry, I know a lot of people like that one. There's a little bit of hate for the Community Edition, but trust me, give it a chance. You'll grow to love it. It's pretty fantastic. But what this will do is it's going to search all the breach credentials and then correlate all those email addresses to their SAM account ID names, because a lot of times you might be dealing with A12345. And so it does that correlation for you, updates the BloodHound Neo4j database, and then it will also create and import custom Cypher queries into BloodHound Community Edition. So let's say you're on a red team, you want to be stealthy. You're not going to password spray 10,000 credentials, basically going to piss a lot of people off. The customer, everyone's going to be mad, right? So we want to find the highest value targets, so shortest pass from breach credentials, right? And then let's say, oh, you got this really good password for the CEO, but he changed his password yesterday. So we got you covered. Shortest pass from breach credentials after password last set users. So this will really narrow down which are the highest value targets to go after. And you probably aren't going to get detected if you just one incorrect password, right? So pretty nice to stay stealthy. And then we also have shortest pass to domain admins from breach credentials, which can be pretty useful. This was really helpful on my red team test. So I wanted to share it with everybody and make it open source, right? Because we have a lot of cool internal tools as well that sometimes you just can't share. But anytime I have the opportunity to make it open source and share with the community, give back, I try to do that because security was built on open source. Basically everything runs on open source, if you think about it. So next we have demo time. And I pre-recorded this video because the demo gods, they have a mind of their own, right? So got to ensure it works. So basically what we're doing now is we're doing that BloodHound subcommand. We're processing the leaked data after it reads in the config file. And then it's going to get the BloodHound Neo4j users data. It's going to correlate that data, generate all the credential stuffing wave files so you don't lock out accounts, and you can do a password spray every hour or 2 hours, however long their password policy declares. And then it'll create the Excel spreadsheet as well, because gotta love Excel, right? People still use it. I use it all the time, and it is nice just to sort and filter. It'll give you a nice Excel sheet that is already set to like a pivot table or whatever, so you can sort alphabetically, whatever. And then it creates the spreadsheet, updates the Neo4j users with leaked data indicators so that these Cypher queries work, and then imports and creates those custom Cypher queries into BloodHound Community Edition. And this is an example, kind of what you'll see when you use this tool. So it'll aggregate all the breach sources, give you the most recent breach data, and it'll give you that timestamp at the top, breached at 2024, 8/15, and then is the user enabled? Do they have breach data? Do they have breach data after the password was last set? In this case, false. No, they don't, because their password was last set on April 16th. But the most recent breach occurrence was 2024, 8/15. So that's kind of what this bottom row tells you, password last set before breach. And I know that is very confusing, right? Probably the most confusing. After I didn't, yeah, super confusing. Even when I'm trying to explain it now, I'm like, let me think about that. But yeah, you kind of get the idea. So when it's negative right there, that's going to let you know, oh man, shoot. It's not probably not a valid password because they changed their password after the most recent breach. But you never know. Maybe they just incremented that number by 1, or maybe now it's 2025 exclamation mark instead of 2024. So always check that. I see you have a question in the audience. Yes.
Yes. You had the waves of passwords for spraying on the previous slide. Do you have a particular tool that you prefer to use with that format?
Yeah, great question. So, yes, a lot of tools. Really, the right tool for the job, right?
What was the question?
Oh yeah.
again?
So the question was, all these WAV files you see in this demo slide right here, is there a particular tool that I prefer to use for spraying those credentials? And the answer is yes. Probably my favorite tool is Kerbrute. So you'll do password guesses super fast using the Kerberos protocol, and way faster than SMB. And they might not have detections for this. But if that doesn't work, maybe there's some issue with Kerberos and they only have SMB. You can also use NetExec to spray passwords. There's a ton of password spraying tools, but those are my probably top two would be Kerbrute and NetExec. And really awesome stuff going on with NetExec right now. Quite nice tool right there. But yeah, Kerbrute would probably be my favorite. And you can also do user enumeration with Kerbrute. So if you're on an internal network pen test and they don't give you credentials, a lot of times now we ask for credentials just to find those critical vulnerabilities, ADCS, SCCM, all that good stuff. But sometimes they just don't want to. They're like, nope, see what you can do. And so you user enum with Kerbrute, use that Zato top 10 million from SecList, or I usually take the recon data, find their naming convention, but what if they're using user IDs, right? Well, MP64 from Hashcat, you can generate, or Crunch, whatever you prefer, generate all these user ID patterns and spray those as well. And probably not gonna get detected unless they're a mature organization that actually created a detection for, I think it's Kerberos pre-auth set or something is what's used to do the user enumeration. But does that answer your question?
Pretty much so, thank you.
Sweet. But yeah, that's kind of what it looks like. Definitely, if you see an issue with the tool, if you're using it, open up an issue on GitHub or a pull request. That would be fantastic. Would appreciate that. And that's about it. So thanks for listening. You can find me on the internet. Those are some of my socials. And don't be shy. Feel free to ask questions or submit an issue and all that good stuff.